take a bit.
Oh,
Seeing as
hi.
how some pages are difficult to read.
My name is Lucifer the
Sure what to think of
Third.
it. But
I
if there's
live
any
in
grain of truth to
Kombucha
what is written,
in Brisbane.
I'm not sure if I will ever step foot in the ocean again. Here's what it said.
Tomorrow is just another day of school,
To whoever finds this message, do not let anyone attempt to mount a rescue operation for us. And by the time you find this, I, or anyone on my team for that matter, will be long past the ability of anyone to save. I'm only writing this so somebody in the right position on the surface may have an account of the horrors that have befallen us down here. In the dark and cold void,
have not born,
we just become my colleagues' eternal tombs. And very soon, will become mine as well. And as a warning, to try and ward off any other scientists, military, or anyone for that matter, from attempting to recover. From attempting to recover what we had been sent down here to uncover and study. It may end up being in vain. God knows. I know all too well that us humans often fail to ignore the warnings that are subtly given to us to stay away, even when they are directly under our noses. But I must make an attempt anyways with the little time I have remaining, before they find where I have hidden myself. For the record, my name is Desmond Windows. I'm 35 years old, and I was a professor at the University of Oregon's Institute for Marine Biology. I had been teaching there for the last 8 years after graduating at the top of my class. I always had a quick thinking and tenacious mind, able to outthink and outperform even some of my teachers. Due to my accelerated performance.
What is it? Well, take to bed. This is the kitchen, then table, lounge room, the garage, and there. Then we have my room. And of course the bathroom. Well, I'll see you in the morning. Well, in the morning, another day of school. Here we are, school. A middle school and a high school for medical people. First class is upstairs, so let's go upstairs. Here we are. The wrong one class. This is the class. Good morning, class. Okay, class dismissed. Cool. Second class for the day is here. Good morning, class. Class dismissed. My last class should be up here. Here we are. Good morning, class. Okay, class dismissed. Have fun at break. Cool, it's break time. Let's go, buddy. Break time, yo. We'll fly down there. I got it. Let's go. Let's go chill here for the yo. Plus, actually no. Chill here. Press play.
Due to my accelerated performance,
Her born for
I'm
die.
graduating 3 years earlier than intended. Hen was personally contacted by the dean himself, asking if I'd be willing to take a part-time tenure to help the small and very much overburdened staff down in Charleston. I immediately accepted the offer. I always loved being able to teach others about my passion for the ocean and all of its creatures. But I told them that I would also be out at times of the year, since I had already agreed to sign on with a large oceanic research corporation, which, for personal reasons, shall remain unnamed. Due to my years of diving experience, especially since I had been certified as an advanced open water diver, and I had also completed training and had been certified to be capable of safely operating an atmospheric diving suit, or ADS for short. About 6 weeks ago, I was contacted by a fellow scientist and an old friend of mine. David Kimball and I had met at an oceanic conservation panel about 6 years ago, though his career had...
Talking about cat for a second. Imagine I saw a hillbot wide in the fog. I'll go over there and one punch him. Why not? But eventually, and lucky enough, he's not real. There's mods for him. Yeah, but he's not actually real. Well, the warden is real. You know what I mean. 3, 2, 1,
in a
action.
vastly different direction than mine had. He'd been contracted by a private group that I'd never heard of before to act as a consultant and the head diver of their underwater salvage and research division. He basically supervised the lower down members of his team on locating long-forgotten shipwrecks, maintaining oil rig platforms, excavating underwater ruins, stuff of that nature. And he was allowed in return to use their diving suits and submersibles to conduct studies on deep water species of fish and cetaceans in his off time. He told me that the group had heard about my merits and expertise, not only working in deep water, but also about my secondary degrees in ancient languages, archaeology, and oceanography, and were interested in signing me on to an expedition currently underway.
Number one, yo.
While trying to map the ocean floor for wrecks, their sonar systems had detected an unusual anomaly about 4,000 feet below the surface. They passed over the anomaly a few times more, using an advanced system called side scan sonar. Basically, for those who do not know much about mapping the seafloor, it works almost exactly like the sonar systems you have in all boats, except you use a towfish or a torpedo-shaped device trolled behind the boat, which emits conical pulses towards the seafloor across a wide area perpendicular to the path of the sensor, and in basic terms, creates an image or map of the seafloor it passes over. When the team had reviewed the map created, they were shocked to see what appeared to be ruins on the bottom across a 3-mile wide area. They had also discovered an American World War II battleship located less than half a mile from the ruins, dug sideways into the seafloor. To them, they had more or less hit the jackpot. A previously undiscovered shipwreck, which would net them a hefty financial discovery fee from the Navy, and what appeared to be sunken ruins from some ancient civilization which had once been above the waves. It's stuff people in their profession usually only dreamed about. Immediately, plans had been put in place to set down a deep ocean research station for scientists, biologists, and other assorted team members to be able to study both sides. I stopped them at that point and asked them why they would need either me or him. While both of us knew how to pilot submersibles in ROVs, our forte was in ADS suits, and the deepest one could currently go so far in was about 2,000 feet down, only halfway to the distance the sites were in. He leaned in and, in a hushed tone, explained to me that the group had, in almost absolute secrecy, with the exception of the appropriate agencies needed to certify and approve it for safety, developed an advanced version of the new exosuits that could withstand the pressures at over 5,000 feet underwater. They say they could theoretically keep you safe to 7,500 feet, he told me. But it's untested. He then proceeded to tell me that his group wanted me to lead the diving team to explore, film, catalog, and potentially bring to the surface some of the ruins to surface teams to study, while he would lead the team to work over the shipwreck. They would pay me handsomely for my time, in addition to being named as one of the hit discoverers of whatever lay down there. I would become immortal in the history books for my findings as well. One of the heroes Kimball told me would be on my paycheck. Thus, the opportunity to be remembered forever went to my head immediately. And before he could say anything else, I told him I would take their offer. Such a goddamn stupid decision. I was almost immediately afterward flown from the US to New Zealand, where I boarded the group's ship, the Oceanic Explorer, in Auckland, and spent almost a week heading to our destination, which lay about 200 miles from the Pitcairn Islands. When we arrived, we were greeted by 5 other ships clustered around one area of sea, 2 belonging to the same company, and 3 the Navy. They had rigged a platform that dangled between them, where the submersibles could arrive, dock, and then disembark again into the depths. Once tied up with the other vessels, Gimbal and I were taken to a private briefing, led by men who clearly couldn't even fit into a diving suit if his life depended on it. No, he was clearly a topside leader. He sat us both down and, after having us sign over half a dozen non-disclosure agreements to make sure that we wouldn't black to any reporters before they could announce their findings themselves, you could tell they had been fucked over before more than once by that problem. He showed us the map created by the sonar. Both of us stared in almost utter shock at what we saw. They were definitely ruins, all right. They lay in many patterns. The innermost almost circular in pattern, with outcroppings leading off in a straight direction. That was the biggest giveaway. Nature does not do straight lines. He also pointed out the battleship wreck lying just off to the side, which David focused on, but I was too enthralled by what I saw to care. I studied every inch of the sonar image of those ruins, mentally mapping them into my mind, deducing where the best place to start my sweep would be. My mind was racing with endless possibilities as well. How old would they have to be to remain undiscovered for so long? Certainly, I could understand why nobody had ever found them.
Pause it. School's over for the day. Head home. May as well. Here we are at my house. It's a good show here. Press play.
We've only explored about 5% of the ocean so far, and anything could be hidden in that remaining 95%. After we'd finished with our regular briefing, the man named Le Cassé warned us that a tropical storm was brewing about 8 miles to the west of us, and was heading in our direction. He told us that if it didn't alter its course, the topside ships would have to pull out to a safer location until it passed, which he said out here could take a couple of weeks. We'd also be out of radio contact with them as well, which meant that if any emergency arose beneath the waves, all we'd have would be the onboard doctor, her staff, and her equipment. We both told them that we understood, and we'd make sure to keep ourselves.
What is it? Head to bed. You know. See you in the morning. Well, enough of that. Let's go. Let's go to school, yo. I Another day at school. First class for the day should be here. Good morning, class. Class dismissed. Cool. Second class. This. Good morning, class. Class dismissed. Our last class until the afternoon should be here. Good morning, class. Okay, class dismissed. Have fun at break. Close this. Torch, torch. What's this? The library. Okay. Yo. Let's go back to school for the day. Why not? Go chill down here. Oh shit, train station. No, let's go chill up here. Here we are. Press play.
And our team as safe as we possibly could.
A bond for day.
After, we were both ushered from the ship onto the platform, where a 3-man submersible waited to take us down. Carrying only one duffel bag of clothing and personal belongings each, we squeezed into the tight interior, and the hatch was sealed. 2 safety divers swam around us, making final checks to be sure the submersible was ready for descent. One approached the small window in the front and flashed the OK sign to our pilot. I craned my neck to catch a final glimpse of the orange sunset disappearing in the horizon.
What's tomorrow?
And then,
Friday.
we sat quietly below the waves
Let's go.
and began our descent into the deep.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG, and you write your own story instead of...
There's a reason why the area of water we were hitting is dubbed the Midnight Zone. When you're down there, you're so far from the surface that no light can reach you. Aside from the artificial lights of the sub, or the occasional flashes made by deep-sea creatures, there is nothing around you but blackness. An impenetrable darkness that almost seemed to reach out with fast, unseen clawed hands to wrap around you. Like it wishes to suffocate you in its unending embrace. Even when you've dove in water this deep 100 times, you still get an eerie, almost primal sense of fear looking out past where the light cannot reach. Because you can't see what lurks just beyond the veil. I feel ashamed, like a child afraid of monsters under the bed or in the closet, by saying that I felt a huge sense of relief when I spotted the station appearing beneath us. The darkness shooed away by dozens of lights mounted on and around it. I could see the other divers in what had to be the new exosuits plodding around the outside of the base, setting up their final camera systems and setting down huge cases of equipment for the coming days and weeks of exploring and surveying. Our sub moved into position and hooked onto a hatch that would allow us to transfer from it into the base itself. After the water had been drained and the pressure equalized, the pilot unscrewed the hatch and opened it for us to climb through. He gave us a cheerful smile and pat on the back as we climbed through. "Have a good stay, lads," he called after us with an Irish accent. "I'll be seeing you in about 6 to 7 weeks. Be safe." We both thanked him, and he sealed the hatch again, disconnecting himself from the station, and slowly began his long ascent back up to the surface, leaving the both of us to marvel at what we had stepped into. It was clear that tens of millions, if not billions of dollars had been invested into designing that base. It had been placed directly between the two sites, and it was huge. Of course, it had to be to accommodate the number of people on our two teams, plus the 3 members of the medical staff. The entire structure had been made from a metal that could withstand the immense pressure pressing down on it from all sides. You could always hear the structure creak and groan as it won its endless battles with the water outside. Right away, we were met by the base's leader, a tall, lanky man with hair that stuck out like the spines of a sea urchin, named Carruthers. He showed us to our cabins to drop off our gear, then escorted us to the main observation area and operations room located in the center of the base. There was a rather large dome window dominating the far wall, made out of extremely strong and durable plexiglass that allowed anyone in the room to look out at the work any divers in the immediate vicinity were doing, along with a bank of consoles on the opposite wall that showed the views of a half a dozen cameras mounted outside, and also ones that were mounted on the shoulders of the exosuits. I took a glance out of the window at the darkness, just out of range of the lights, and unwillingly shuddered, before shaking my head and turning back to Carruthers and Gimbo. "You're absolutely obsessed with the ocean, and have been almost as deep as this before," I chided myself. "You know better than most people what really lays in the gloom, so stop looking out there and letting your subconscious think up things that aren't there." Shaking the feeling from my mind, I focused in and listened to the men speak. He filled us in on what had been done so far. They had set up the perimeter around the base, and had also set up rope guides and light poles leading to both sides, but hadn't actually begun any surveying yet. They had been instructed to wait on our arrival to begin that stage of work. We were to rest up and meet our respective teams when they returned from outside. Tomorrow, we would both set out on our respective paths to begin our initial sweeps. We would each be in charge of tense pressure and time constraints. All they needed were natural leaders, and that was us. He first walked Dave through the info they had acquired on the battleship, and this time, I chose to listen out of sheer curiosity. He said that the ship had gone missing halfway through the war without a single trace. Their last report had been that they were about to be battered by a huge storm. But their last location was what baffled me. According according to a few declassified military records they had been given by the Navy. When the last known position had been transmitted, it was all the way up near the Philippines, thousands of miles away from here. My mind raced with confusion, trying to use reason and logic to come to a sensible conclusion. How in the hell could they have been blown this far of course? I could understand that they may have been blown a few hundred miles from where they should. But this far? Surely they would have noticed, if not with their equipment, then at least by maps, the stars and constellations. At least the fact there was no land for hundreds of miles. I couldn't make sense of it. The look on David's face told me he had the same thoughts. Carruthers explained that the US Navy had been notified immediately about the wreck, and they had asked personally for it to be photographed and documented for their records, along with ours. It was the primary reason for their financial aid. They wanted to know what had caused the wreck as much as we did. After he finished, he turned to me and only said very brief words about my expedition. There wasn't really much he could say anyways. They had little to no information about the ruins, other than what I'd been told on the surface and the sonar map. He did say that he wanted my team and I to move very slowly, as nobody could tell how old they really were. After we finished documenting and cataloging everything where it lay, then we could begin to see if we could lift any pieces and bring them back to base to study. I told him I understood and was ready when he deemed it was time to go. Inside though, I was bursting with the excitement and giddiness of a child discovering a Native American arrowhead in a stream. I couldn't wait to get out there and set foot in a place that nobody could have set in thousands of years. Even still, and though I mentally kicked myself for the ridiculous emotions I felt, I still refused to turn and look out in the abyss, until I left the room and closed the hatch behind me. That evening, we met everyone at dinner in the gallery. My team was comprised of 4 men and 2 women. King, Elton, Figueroa, Brockman, Notting, and Carpenter. All of them were very experienced deep-sea divers. King, Brockman, and Notting were commercial salvage divers. All 3 had worked together for over 10 years, and you could easily tell that there was a distinct camaraderie between the 3 of them. Alton, Figueroa, and Carpenter were more along the lines of my work, Figueroa being a fellow marine biologist and oceanographer herself. And Alton and Carpenter had both graduated from Florida State with degrees in archaeology and oceanography, and were also both accredited surveyors. We soon all struck up a friendly vibe from various discussions about our shared love of the water, of 80s horror movies, and various other subjects. And within an hour we were laughing and joking like we had known each other for years. I could see David had also won over his team, though I had never gotten the time to properly learn any of their names. Now that I think about it, I never really learned any of their names, except for the few he ever said to me, perched, maintaining constant radio contact with each other in the other groups.
And a blunt.
About halfway down, she called me over to her side. Windows, take a look at this, she said, and proceeded to use the claw hand of her suit to rub away the muck as gently as possible. For a second, I couldn't distinguish a damn thing, but then realized what she had spotted.
Push it. Head back to the crib. Was it this way or was it this way? No, it was this way, yeah. The train station. Or was it? I don't know, but I'm going this way. I have a feeling it's this way. No, it's not this way. So it must be this way. Must be this way, yo. It has to be this way. If I'm correct, let's hope I'm right. I forgot. Hang on. Okay, yeah, look. The train station is over here. So that means my house is this way as well. Well, shit. Oh. Jump. Jump. Here we are. Back at the place where I live. Shit. There's the fucking golf course. Golf club and the golf course. Yeah, my neighborhood, yo. Tomorrow is, yeah, Friday, like I said. Tomorrow, I'm gonna rag school. Why not, yo? So, I will see you in the morning, yo. See you then. Well, another day. Go to here for a day. Press play.
There were images carved deeply into the stone.
A bond for a day, yo.
Some were pictures, and others were, I could only assume, hieroglyphs or an ancient language I couldn't read. I didn't need to though. The carved pictures were sufficient enough to explain themselves. Depicted on the small portion of exposed stone that I could see was what I can only describe as something truly monstrous. The creature was gargantuan in size, with the head of a wolf eel, one gigantic black eye staring directly at the viewer, and an almost humanoid body covered in what appeared to be black scales. It reached towards the surface with webbed, clawed hands for what looked like a tribal boat, its occupants cowering in fear at their sealed fate. Around its torso swam smaller creatures, what had to be underlings of the monstrosity. And they too appeared to be humanoid in shape, but with the heads of viperfish atop their shoulders. Their huge, razor-sharp maws poised open to catch the unfortunate victims that managed to avoid death from their leader. I scraped away algae from the carving underneath, and shuddered softly at the next image. The huge creature had dragged the entire ship down to the bottom of the ocean, and was slowly torturing its drowning victims. Limbs had been torn off, and a clear expression of malicious glee adorned its inhuman features. Still others being torn to shreds by the smaller monsters. The carving was so detailed that I could see each individual expression of horror and pain eternally frozen on each person's face. My God, I heard Figueroa say next to me. I shook my head. I'm as much of a scientific man as you can be, Lisa.
And a bond.
But Dad, I closed my eyes. The images burned into the back of my eyelids. And that is the furthest thing from God you could possibly get. I opened my eyes again, raised my camera, and snapped off a few shots of the carvings. Then turned away. An almost desperate need to get away from whatever ancient civilization had conjured up that beast overwhelming me. Come on, let's get to the center and finish up today's work. The circular center was absolutely massive. We estimated it to be almost half a mile across from the end of one row of pillars to the beginning of another on the far side. Here and there We could see some smaller formations rising up to about chest height at varying distances. But, for the most part, it was flat, save for an odd spiral that had been carved into the smooth stone deep enough that the outline could still be seen. When you dropped down onto it, you could feel the dips, even through the ages of mud and muck that had accumulated over it. We all moved out to a distance of about 5 feet from one another, and as a team, slowly moved across to the other side. We were about halfway across when I heard Nodding let out a shout of surprise, followed by curses.
Everyone stop.
I called.
Ano bon?
Nodding. You alright? Yeah, I'm fine.
Was the muttered reply I received. I needed more information though. When you're working in deep water, one small mistake can cost a diver's life.
What happened?
I pressed. After a few seconds of silence, he answered.
A goddamn gulper eel suddenly appeared out of nowhere, coming straight for my face. Caught me off guard, and I stumbled back into a rock formation. Nothing's damaged on my suit. I just finished checking.
I let out a sigh of relief as the rest of the group burst into laughter.
What? Were you afraid that you were gonna be swallowed whole?
Brockman said in a sing-song voice, trying to lighten the mood. Everyone laughed harder, myself and even Nodding joining in. It helped loosen the sudden burst of tension that had fallen over us for that split second after all. Even from 15 feet away, I could see the sheepish expression he wore through his faceplate.
I just got startled to hell and back. That was all.
He said in return. He sighed.
I hate to say this, Windows, and I'm sorry, but when I backed into that formation, I knocked it over.
I thrust it around the others to inspect the damage. He was right. The small pillar had indeed been knocked over.
Ano bon?
It lay on its side, a small shroud of muck settling around it. It looked to be in one piece, however.
It's okay, Nodding. It didn't break at all. It just fell on the side. You're safe from being chewed out by me or Carruthers.
He let out a relieved sigh, and then looked down at the gauges lining the inside of his suit.
Thank Christ. Well, we got 2 hours of oxygen remaining, boss. You want to finish up surveying this area and head back to base?
I didn't answer him right away, however. I was staring down at where the pillar had clearly been knocked out from. There was a slot there, a rectangular opening about 3 or 4 feet across. But it didn't seem to only go down a few inches or even a few feet. The blackness in that space seemed greater, almost as if there was a space much larger and deeper beneath it. I felt the same odd sensation in my head again. This time, a little stronger. And for a split second, I was overcome with a desire to peer into the slot, to even swim into it. It was almost as if something had hooked itself into my brain and was trying to reel me in. I snapped out of my moment by Brockman calling my name.
Windows?
She asked, tentatively. I looked up at everyone. They all wore puzzled, confused expression on their faces as they stared at me, shaking away the last tendrils of my insane thought. All that we could about the ruins. The surface team had contacted us 2 days ago and had informed us that the storm was almost on top of us, so they would have to pull back until the storm either passed by or blew itself out. They did, however, authorize us to bring back a few pieces of the site to further study. And we had very selectively chosen 3 smaller pieces, using commercial lift packs to float them back to the base. Once inside, they had been brought to the lab for us to clean up and study. There had been more carvings, depicting the same monster I'd seen on the carving I'd examined the first time, along with what we know now sure had to be a very ancient language. Using specialized scanning equipment, we had put it into a computer and had set it to attempt to translate to English. So far, it had been running for almost 3 days with no success. We headed back in the meantime to document the outer edges of the site. one of what we assumed to be our final initial passes. We had again divided up into teams of 2, and had fanned out over a distance of about 100 feet from the next team. This time around, I'd paired up with Carpenter, who had volunteered to help me photograph and film the end of one particular row of pillars. We were about halfway done with our job, when I noticed the glint of something red and metallic reflecting off the glow of the nearest light.
I love my Domino's children. It's game on. You need to feed your team. 3 pizzas, 3 sides, a delicious cheese dream. Just $29. You.
I turned and felt my jaw drop open. What in the absolute fuck? I was staring at a tricycle, a goddamn red children's tricycle, sitting perfectly upright on the bottom, not even 20 feet from me. Confusion filled my mind. How in the hell did that get down here?